Hello, and welcome to the Tuning In podcast. I'm Dana Evans, your inner voice and emotional support coach. In this podcast, we explore the deep wisdom that lives in our bodies, emotions, and inner voice. Together, we'll shed the layers that no longer serve us, creating space to tap into the flow of life and experience true ease. So, are you ready to join me? Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Tuning In podcast. Today, we are going over a very fun topic, the emotional hangover, because that shit hits hard, and when you have it, I want you to know what to do with it. I just had an emotional hangover yesterday and realized that this is a really good topic to address on the podcast because we were talking so much about emotions. I wanted to create this series of episodes that we're working on so that you have some really good reference points when you're going through stuff. That's why I haven't been doing as many personal updates on these episodes, because I want you to be able to come to these episodes and get what you need within less than 30 minutes, and you can come back to them over and over again. So that's why we're doing the emotional exploration series. And that's why we're going in depth with all of these topics on emotions. So I do hope that you find them helpful, and I will get back to the more traditional story-driven personal episodes. But I think there's a lot of value in these, and I want them as part of the podcast catalog because these are important topics that we need to address. And it takes a lot to really let them soak in. So I wanted you to have a space where you can just come and listen without a lot of preamble. The Emotions Decoded program, which is doors are going to officially open on October 7th, which is my wedding anniversary. I know I've been talking about it like crazy because I'm obsessed with this program. It's been all I've been thinking about and focusing on. I'm writing episode scripts. I'm mapping out the outline and putting together all of the audio clearings for you. Listen, if you listen to this podcast, you have to download and participate in Emotions Decoded. It is just, this program is so perfect. It's what I wish I had had for my past self, where emotions didn't feel super accessible. I didn't know what to do with them, and I wasn't really comfortable yet experiencing them in a group or even one-to-one with a coach. It was something I was trying to figure out and understand within my body. And I wanted a private way to do that felt really accessible and not like this big daunting thing. Because I know for a lot of us, emotions already feel daunting. They feel overwhelming. They definitely feel like something you don't want to deal with. And when they do come up, it feels like a big distraction. And so I, back in the day, would have loved to have a way that I can integrate the learning and practice of emotional clearing into my life without it being this whole huge embarkment. That's what Emotions Decoded is really designed to do. It's your emotional hygiene practice. It's a 14-day private podcast, so it's delivered as a private podcast. It's a structured audio course, and every day you get a teaching and embodiment practice so that you can build up your tolerance to emotions, your understanding of emotions, and your trust in how your body handles emotions. We are doing it live, as in everyone who starts will start at the same time. And then in the middle of it, we will have a Q&A on Zoom with me. So you can come and ask questions, get coaching, get emotional support, and make sure that you really feel good about how the program is working for you. So that is coming up. I'm not going to stop talking about it until we start because I just love this program and I'm really excited for you to be a part of it. And if you're listening to this episode after it started, I will have a link in the show notes for you to join the waitlist for the next time I run it. It will be a program that I will be running regularly, because I really want to get this information out there at an accessible price point, an accessible access point, in that It doesn't require a lot from you. Every episode is less than 20 minutes, and it really is going to make a difference in your life. Link is in the show notes. Get on the wait list, join the program. Let's do this. Now, today we are talking about the emotional hangover. So I did have a really intense emotional clearing by accident yesterday. I was in a program with Bella Lively, and she's actually who I got trained with originally in inner voice work. And ultimately, she taught about beanbag release, which is based on Eckhart Tolle's pain body work. And that is what I got really into and realized, wow, this is the work I want to be doing. Yes, I love to bring people to their inner voices. And in order to get to their inner voices, a lot of people need to clear the emotion, because the emotion and the fear and the discomfort that comes up around emotion often blocks us from being able to hear our inner voice and the wisdom from within. And so I saw that beautiful gateway of, let's do the emotional work. And so that's what I started. And I learned all of that back in the day from Bella Lively. That was about 6 years ago. But I was on a call with her. I'm doing another training with her. And someone else was doing some work on a past life. And oh my gosh, I don't know what was going on, but I had so much clearing. I was yawning. I had tears moving. My body was like quivering and shaking, moving stuff out. It was intense. By no means was it the most intense clearing I've ever had, but it was intense in that it was unexpected, and I definitely wasn't aware that something was in there, in that topic that needed to move out. In fact, I had other things that I was feeling coming up that day. What's really interesting is that when I sat down for that training, I had just gotten back from a trip and feeling a little resistance to being home, and that was showing up in my lungs. And my lungs were feeling tight. I was having trouble breathing deeply. And I had this really intense, like, when you just have to keep clearing your throat. I had stuff between my chin and my chest. So in my throat, but really it was kind of stuck at the base of my throat. I was so annoyed. I'm like, I can't clear this. Well, I go through that clearing that, again, someone else was working with Bella and they were clearing. I was getting my own clearing and movement based on what they were talking about, but in my own experience. And all of those things happened. Like I shared, I was crying, my body was quivering and like doing that shaking and moving stuff out. At the end of that call, I ended up doing a little bit more clearing on the resistance I was having to being home. By the end of that call, y'all, I did not have any frog in my throat. There was no phlegm. There was no heaviness. I could breathe deeply, and that lasted the whole day until I inhaled a bug on a bike ride. And I was so mad because I was like so free, and my lungs felt so free and clear, and my throat felt free and clear. And then I inhaled a bug on a bike ride, and then I had to start like coughing and trying to get the bug out, which aggravated my chest. And it didn't create the same problem, but it created a similar issue, and I just had to laugh because, of course, that happened. Anyway, all that being said, I moved a lot of energy. I cleared a lot of old emotion yesterday. And afterward, I felt terrible. I'm not supposed to say that, right? I'm supposed to say when you clear emotion, you feel better. And you do ultimately feel better. And a lot of times you feel better immediately. And I actually did feel better immediately. I felt the clarity in my chest. I felt lighter. I felt excited. But then I started to get tired. So as the day went on, I was like, whoa, I'm feeling exhausted. And I'll be honest, I didn't deal with it properly. In fact, I didn't even really connect it to the emotional clearing at first. Instead, I kind of just got in bed and I was scrolling on my phone. I don't recommend it. I really don't. And it did not feel good. I started feeling worse and demotivated, and I was so tired and I wasn't resting. I finally broke myself out of that and went outside which my inner voice has been telling me to do a lot lately, to just go lie on my porch swing outside in the sun. So I did that, and that really helped shift my energy, which is when I realized, oh, this is an emotional hangover. So I want to talk about that with you all so that you can recognize when that happens and also take care of yourself and not let the mind spiral about what's going on so that the next day you can feel better. I slept hard last night. I did go on the bike ride, which was also a good way to move the energy, which I'll talk about. And then I slept so hard, and I woke up this morning feeling a lot better, a lot clearer, and a lot lighter. So remember, the hangover will happen, but it's just the in-between to feeling clear and light and relief. First of all, what is an emotional hangover? Well, it's similar to an alcohol hangover in that, or like an energetic hangover, right? Like a people hangover, anything where it basically feels like you overconsumed and your body is still catching up with processing what it received. In this case, what's interesting, whereas with people or alcohol, it's like it's too much that came in. With an emotional hangover, it's almost like too much came up. And I guess too much isn't exactly the right word because your body and inner voice are working with you to allow what is ready to move up and out. But if it's new stuff, or if you weren't exactly mentally prepared, or if it's just a lot coming up at once, it can feel overwhelming to the system. So that's not to say it was wrong or bad that it happened. No, it's not. But it can take more than just the time of clearing to actually integrate and fully release what was cleared. So an emotional hangover is when you have had a surge of emotion bubble up and try to move out of your system in a safe and healthy way. And your system is just slower to move it and process it than the pace at which the emotion came up. So that's all it is. It's like there's this big surge of emotion. It's like, she's creating space. We feel safe. The timing is right. We're ready to move this out. So it comes up and comes out through all of those ways I described. It could be physical movement, like if you're moving anger. It could be tears. It can be quivering and quaking or shaking of the body. It can be memories coming up. A lot of different ways that this comes up. It can be laughter. You can sometimes hysterically laugh when you're clearing emotion. That's a fun one. I like that one. That all comes to the surface and it's like, whoa, it needs to move out. But in order for it to fully move out, the body needs to process and integrate the space that was left behind. The body isn't as quick as the speed at which the emotion came up. So that's all the hangover is. And so what you're left behind with is a lot of space and a lot of old energy that just needs a little bit of time to kind of dissolve. So that's what it is. How an emotional hangover can feel. Well, honestly, it can feel like a hangover. You can have a headache. You can feel a little woozy. You can feel exhausted, cloudy, foggy, just a little unsteady or unstable. It very much feels like an energy or alcohol hangover. It can feel like you're backlogged, like there's so much moving through that your body doesn't know what to do with it. You can also have to go to the bathroom a lot. You might be very thirsty or very hungry. These are all signs of an emotional hangover. And sometimes they're really intense and heavy. And sometimes it's just like after a session, all of a sudden you're like, wow, I feel exhausted and I'm thirsty. I'm going to drink a bunch of water and take a nap. Sometimes you all of a sudden feel soreness and pain in your body. And what that is if you've been in that numb state that we've talked about, once you move emotion out, you feel your body all of a sudden. So when we're in a really heightened emotional state and we're like either in the emotion or in the blocking of the emotion, that's a lot of energy that's required. That can actually take our awareness away from our physical body. So once you clear an emotion, once you let the emotion move up and out, once you get out of that freeze response and you're no longer numb, suddenly you can feel your body. And so you can feel pain and soreness. And it's not that the clearing created the pain and soreness, but it's actually that you suddenly are tuned back into your body and you can feel the pain and soreness that was previously there and you were numb to. Isn't that nuts? So you can also feel sore when you're experiencing the hangover. And it's actually because you've come back into your body and you're now aware of pain that was already there. So those are how it can manifest and show up in your system. And then the next question, of course, is like, that doesn't sound good. What do I do? Well, first of all, it actually is good. It means that you're moving things at a level that is more than you've done before. And it's really healthy for your system to expand its tolerance for what emotion it can hold and release within any given moment. It's exciting, actually, if you have a hangover, because it probably means you're pushing a growth edge of your own emotional practices and your own emotional hygiene. So recognize that this is not a problem. It's not a bad thing. And it's also why I recommend when people do emotional clearing work that they do it when they have space and downtime afterward, and that they don't have to immediately go back and like jump right back into the day. It can be really difficult to move from a very tender, present, sensitive, and sensitized experience to have to go right back into the brain and work. So whenever you're doing an emotional clearing, as much as possible, you want to have some space afterward to integrate. And I recommend that for the Emotions Decoded program as well. I really like to do it at the end of the day so you can clear out from the day and again, go into sleep mode and let your body integrate while you sleep. So what do you do? Best practices are, of course, listening to your bodies. Hydrating, whether that's tea, kombucha, water, electrolytes, whatever that looks like, definitely hydrate anytime you do emotional clearing. I mean, it is an energetic workout that takes a lot of energy, even though you can't see it, even though you might not be able to see the sweat, right? Or feel the muscles working. Your inner muscles, your awareness is working a lot, and a ton of energy is expended whenever we do emotional clearing, which is why you feel tired, even though it's like, I didn't do anything except lie here. You're like, yeah, well, that was a lot of energy moving. And whenever we're moving a lot of energy, we want to hydrate and take care of ourselves in that way. Also, food. So a lot of times, if you've moved a lot of energy, you can feel a little bit ungrounded at first. You can also feel extremely grounded and steady. I'm just saying, if you're feeling the hangover, you might feel a little bit uprooted. And if you do, you want to eat some nourishing, grounding foods, whatever that is for you. I had cheese yesterday. That might be bone broth or a hearty stew or a hot chocolate, whatever that meal or food or beverage is that feels really grounding. Definitely take that in. Next up, best practices is to go outside. And this is basically for anyone who does emotional clearing, hangover or not, really get some water, get some food, go outside. Feel the sunshine on your skin. Feel the dirt or the stone or the rock, the earth beneath your feet. Breathe in the air and let that soak in, even if it's just for a minute or two. Spending time outside after doing this work is really powerful. If it's feeling really intense and you're feeling heavy or lethargic or exhausted, really the best thing you can do is to sleep, to take a nap. If you can't quite nap, maybe lie down and read a book. Just give yourself space. That is honestly the best advice I can give you for this experience is don't think anything's wrong. Have food, water, and nature, and then rest and take space. It might not be a good time to have engaging conversations. It might not be a good time to try to do a bunch of work. It's definitely not a good time to evaluate your to-do list. Just recognize that the time after a big clearing is a very sensitive time of integration. And so we don't want to flood your system with a bunch of new information and questions and to-do lists and tasks and conversations because that's too much stimulation. What the body needs is space and time and rest to integrate. And again, that might be 20 minutes, it might be an hour, it might be 6 hours or 24 hours. The timing is what your body decides, not what your mind decides. So, as much as possible, certainly immediately after a clearing, and even more so if you're feeling those emotional hangover symptoms that I explained, it's just a time to take a little quiet time, space, and rest. Don't call your friend, don't try to talk to your partner about planning your next trip. Don't go into Slack and start responding to a million comments and planning your to-do list and trying to plan for your next quarter. It's not time yet. Now, the inspiration to do any of those things is very likely to come once the emotional hangover has lifted. Because, as I said in the beginning, on the other side of the emotional hangover is clarity, relief, ease, and often action. So once you've removed those emotional charges that have been keeping you stuck, making you feel sticky, unmotivated, down and out, like a victim, any of those things that are feeling hard. Once you've removed the emotions around that and you have that space, and once you've gone through the emotional hangover by giving yourself space and grace and time for that cloud to lift, the debris to settle, and for you to be back to yourself, then you often feel more like yourself, more clear, more energized, and more excited to take action on the things that you may have been avoiding. So that includes having conversations that need to be had, reviewing your to-do list and your plan for work. And a lot of times that includes eliminating things that you thought were needed, but in this clarity state are no longer needed. You're like, oh, I don't need to do that. Or, oh, here's something that I hadn't even thought of that I actually do want to do. You also are likely to feel more creative and inspired about life. You might want to move in a different way or call a friend and have a really engaging conversation. You also might have clarity about decisions that need to be made. I ordered a couch. I did it today after my clearing yesterday, where it was like, man, there was so much fear around this couch and making the wrong decision. And all of a sudden today I was like, it's time for the couch. Like, this is what's needed and we know why. And the ordering felt so clear and easy. So this is the beautiful thing that comes on the other side. And again, not every emotional clearing experience leaves you with a hangover. I want to be really clear about that, because most of the time when I leave a client after a session, or I do an audio for myself or someone else does an audio that I've sent them, they feel really good afterward and it does what they need and they move forward. But when we get deeper, when we get some of the heavier emotions, when we get some emotions from, say, a past life or something that's really old or deeply rooted in the body, that's when you might have that hangover. And again, it's just because the emotion's moving faster than the body can process. So all we need is more time so the body can catch up and do its job. And then we still get that same result of clarity, relief, ease, inspired action, and you feel reinvigorated in the life that you're living. That's the beauty of the emotional clearing process. Every time you do it, you're building your own trust in your body and you're strengthening that emotional clearing muscle, right? You're strengthening and you're creating more resilience in your body of like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. Body knows what it's doing. I know I'm going to have space to integrate this afterward. And it's a really beautiful practice to build into your life. To recap, if you have an emotional hangover, it is okay. It is not a problem, and it's definitely not something to judge from the mind. It is part of this experience, and it is very much allowed and necessary. If you try to force yourself through it and get mad at it and resist it, then you're resisting the changes that are already happening. They're already in effect. So just let it play out. Take care of yourself. Have food, have water, get in nature, take space, take time, take some solitude as much as you can, and then rest in a way that your body needs. Sleep and rest is really the best way to integrate any emotional processing that has happened. I think this is such a great topic that is often not discussed in the emotional clearing realm. And it's building that trust in your body and remembering to take space that this too is work. This is a workout. This is energy expended. It just looks and feels different than you're used to. Being tired afterward is okay. It's normal. And any of the other side effects we talked about are also normal and okay. And within 24 hours, they should move through. Sometimes if you had the session later in the day, you feel great. And then the next day you feel hungover. Again, that is okay. Usually it's 24 hours, sometimes up to 48. But know that you're always moving through. You're never moving backwards. And you're always getting to the other side, which is where you experience the clarity, the inspiration, the calm, the ease, and the reconnection back to your true self. So with that, thank you as always for listening. If you're interested in Emotions Decoded and really experiencing more clearing, building your tolerance, building your emotional hygiene practice, please join us. We're starting mid-October. And we'll catch you next week on the Tuning In podcast. Thank you for joining me in another episode of the Tuning In podcast. If you loved this episode, please rate and review it or share it with a friend. If you want to go deeper into the realm of emotions and learn the language of your body, check out my audio course, Emotions Decoded, at alignful.com/audio. As always, you can follow along with my journey on Instagram at Dana_Evans. See you next week.